You
All
too.
righty. Awesome. Should we give it a couple more minutes for people to hop in, or do we think we're ready to get started?
Yeah, whenever.
All right, let's do it. Let's kick it off then, so that we don't have to wait in silence, just staring
Yeah.
at the screen. All right, so awesome. Welcome to IO 2024 Live Talk, CodeCo Live Talk. I think we're all excited to be here. I'll just kick us right off, do some quick introductions, and then we can dive in onto talking about the diverse array of products that were announced today. Um, so to start off with, why don't we, I'll introduce Jen Bailey, who is actually at IO. We've got our on the ground presence. Jen's a full-time professor of computer science, teaching certificates in mobile apps and C# programming at Ames Community College in Colorado. And she's a part-time author or editor for CodeCo and the regional mentor for Google Developer Group Mountain Region. So, howdy, Jen.
Hello,
Um,
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. Moving on, we've got Beatrice. Beatrice is an Android engineer and a Google developer expert for Android and an Android author at CodeCo. She's joining from Nairobi at 4 a.m. That is dedication. So thank you so much for joining us, Beatrice. It's really appreciated, and that sacrifice is noted. Um, Moving on, we've got Carlos. Carlos is an Android Google developer expert and can easily be spotted either working on Android applications written in Kotlin or developing them along with Kotlin multi-platform. He's enthusiastic about new technology. He's constantly trying to reach that last 20% of all of his side projects that seem to be really far away. I think we all know that feeling. He loves to share his knowledge with others by giving talks, teaching, writing, or along with a cold beer in the nearest pub. That's a talk I'd like to go to. And he's joining from Portugal, and it's 2 a.m. So thank you, Carlos. Your
Hello,
sacrifice is
everyone.
also noted.
Thank you. Thank
Uh,
you. Hello, everyone.
Moving on, we've got Ivana. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce any names. Ivana, all right, perfect.
Yeah.
She's perfect. Nailed it. She's a principal engineer at Zillow, an Android author at CodeCo, and she's joining from Mexico City, where it's 7 p.m. So actually, you've made no sacrifice, so I give you no props. She's the author of the Publishing to the Android Play Store book, and she worked on the Disney Plus app. Oh, that's very cool. And that's who we've got here at the moment. I think we may get a late addition if um
I believe our late edition just arrived.
oh, did he? Do I have like a limit? Oh yeah, look at that. My Zoom hadn't expanded. All right, so this is perfect timing then. We've also got Fuad, and again, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing names. We've met and everything, and I'm just horrible with names. Fuad made the flight departure arrival screens you see at every airport worldwide with Flash 7 24 years ago, and that's still being used,
Wow.
right? I assume. He's the author of the Kotlin book, co-author of Android Fundamentals by Tutorials, Android Apprentice, Saving Data on Android, Android App Distribution, and Poetry in Motion, an illustrated book of love poems. So he hasn't written much, but just a couple things here and there. He serves on the CodeCo Android Advisory Board, video and article teams. He's an adjunct professor of mobile design and development at Howard Community College in Maryland, and provides consulting services for health tech and fitness industries through his company, Enara LLC. So thanks for joining, Fuad.
Hey, Alex.
I'm glad we got you in the last minute. I'm glad you got here. Um, all right, awesome. So I guess we can just kick it off. So full
Alex,
disclosure. Oops,
do you mind if I quickly introduce myself? I never gave
oh
you my
yeah, I'm so
introduction.
sorry. Yeah, I'm
No,
sorry.
no worries.
Go
Brian
for it.
Buckley, I'm the Cadeco Andrew technical manager. I've been working with Cadeco for 10 years, started working with Ray back in the day, and just keep on keeping on. So that's
Awesome.
it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And Brian is the one making sure that everything doesn't crash and burn, which it would if I was doing any of that stuff. So big props, big props. Um, all right, cool. So then jumping into Google I/O. So full disclosure, we've seen the keynote and then the developer keynote. That's the stuff that most of us have access to. Jen, you on the ground, have you had more talks, or are those still coming in the days to come?
There were some after the keynote, so I
Hmm.
caught the first part of one, but then to beat traffic
Nice.
and to get internet, I
Gotcha.
snuck back because it's amazing. There's a lot of ride share
Oh
traffic
yeah.
after the keynote because
I
it's really
believe
big.
it.
But they did a couple introductory talks. So they had introduction to AI,
Hmm.
introduction to what's new in web, what's new in Android. So
Gotcha.
they have different tracks, and you can. We all want to go to more than one talk at the same time.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's one of the
absolutely.
difficulties. It's so
Yeah.
nice they stream them later because they have them concurrently running.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Intro to AI. That's interesting. That's like a unique topic. I didn't hear much about AI in the other piece. So Jen, you're there in person. Is anyone else there in person, or is everyone else watching remotely? Hands up if you're in
uh,
there in person. Just yet. Um, awesome. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm also watching remotely, so I do like being able to like YouTube 2 exit or 1 exit or things along those lines to get through some of the marketing speak.
or to
Um,
repeat some of it too,
yes,
because when
yes,
I'm in the crowd and distracted, I'm trying to take notes, and I'm so glad they stream it because it goes by so quick in
yes.
person.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts on the keynote. Like, what stuff did you expect that happened? What stuff that you didn't expect? Were there any surprises? Anything that seemed super cool? Or let me open the floor for it for anyone who has some interesting thoughts or thoughts. They don't even.
I'm surprised there was like zero mention of AI anywhere.
I know, yeah, not a lot of you would have thought, yeah, not a lot of AI.
It was like 121, right? That they were able
Yeah.
to spot. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that if you combined AI and then Gemini, that
Oh yeah, yeah.
you've covered about 50% of the words spoken.
Yes.
Um, yes, clearly lots of AI stuff. Any like usages or anything like that that popped out to folks? What did y'all think about, the new Gemini models and all that jazz?
I was laughing to myself with the glasses because a lot of times I
Hmm.
lose my glasses and I'm wearing them and so forth. And then I pictured myself walking around the room looking through my camera. And so that I find both useful and kind of funny that I'm walking around staring at my phone screen and I wonder why I can't find things that are right in front of me, but at least my phone can find them for me now.
Yeah, there you go.
Unless if you're like me that sometimes put the glasses inside of on top of your head and you need to take a selfie to see if they're
Yeah.
over there.
You should probably start in selfie mode, rotate around, and
Exactly.
then flip to the front camera.
That's good advice right there.
Yeah.
So one mixed message I got, like Jen mentioned the glasses, and they showed the glasses, and they looked like they were like some kind of Google glasses, and they still have Google glasses type like VR, AR, MR stuff listed on their website. But like
Mm.
at the same time, there's news press saying that they've discontinued that. So like, what's going on? And they're showing it in the keynote. So is that like a
Yeah,
hint, or is it like just misdirection?
it did kind of look like Google Lens, right? From like
Yeah,
way back in the
exactly.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, the people in the crowd were asking that too, so I didn't hear any rumors, but that was definitely a question that I heard earlier today.
Mm. Mm. Maybe it
Yeah,
was
what
just
I liked,
glasses with
oh,
like a camera taped on. Sorry. Go for it.
no worries. Yeah, what I liked was the coding tools. I
Mm.
never got to use Android Studio, but my company tested Copilot, and Podium is the other one.
Mm.
So I'm excited to compare now how it works with the Gemini models. I
Mm.
think it's very useful for things that you often like forget when you're coding, and to remember those things, AI is really useful.
Yeah, one talking of, sorry, I think I interrupt someone.
No, go.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was just going to say that I've been using Gemini on Android Studio Canary release that already exists for some time. And one thing that I truly like with Gemini on it is for the stack traces. When you have got a stack trace, you also have the option to ask Gemini, and it works pretty well to identify what's the problem that led to that stack trace. That's really cool. Otherwise, it's like I still have the feeling that okay, we still in the beginning, and if you try to ask something complex, it's still not there. But for the stacked traces and simple things, it's pretty great to have everything on your IDE.
Yeah, that's very cool.
But that's good. I mean, it makes at least finding issues on Android easier. The other
Mm.
thing that I liked, but I find this one a bit interesting, is the circle search and the Gemini models on the Google search. Yes, the circle search makes my life easy. I mean, like shopping for shoes, I can do it
Mm.
faster. But I find it interesting when it comes to learning, when it could be like maths for students. I don't know what learning is going to be and what the professors are because I mean, I can just search the calculations. I don't know how it is encouraging for students to learn when they can just find everything on Gemini. That's the challenge I could see, but I don't know what the professors will think.
Yeah, I had the same reaction when they went through the example of, oh, and my son's homework and he could just circle this part. My first thought was like, if I had this as a kid, I would have learned zero. I would have done
I
exactly
know.
zero work and
Oh
learned nothing.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, that's like
Sorry
a good thing.
to interrupt, Alex.
Jen, we
Yes,
missed you there.
it's-
Can you repeat that?
Yeah,
No, you broke up. Could you repeat what you just said?
oh, who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Alex, but yeah, in education, I really worry about that. And also, like, now I feel like in the last few years, I've moved from someone who wrote my own content to someone who now procures content. And it's because there's just so much. And I'm using it to help me make lessons. So, I mean, all the computer science curriculum is available in Chat GPT and stuff. So I can ask for examples and then for it to elaborate. And I'm glad students have that, but I'm from the days where I was having to write it off of a whiteboard and see the same lecture more than once to get it all written down. And it seems like just so different than the way learning used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting because it's definitely like a helpful tool when you want to learn the subject matter. I think it's going to be interesting for like us as a species to explore what it means for people who are maybe less enthusiastic and just kind of have to go through the motions. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Did you all catch the "this is likely a scam" phone call
Yeah.
yeah.
demo? I thought that was very cool. What was y'all's thoughts?
But at the same time, it's a bit. I'm going with weird here that your phone is listening to your own conversations and capable to understand what's happening beneath it. So it was really cool. It has a lot of potential, but at the same time, it can be a bit tricky to convince someone that you've got an application running that's listening to everything that you and the other person said and can give you tips of what's happening. So
So
I
was
don't
that
know.
was that an example of on-device AI or cloud AI? Because if it's on cloud, then that is kind of like weird. But if it's
No,
on
they,
device, maybe it's not so
yeah,
bad.
they said that it was on device. Everything there never left the device. But one thing is what they said. Another thing is what people will think that will happen. Okay, so my point is, me as a developer trusts Google and believes it's on phone, but it's going to be something that it's difficult to convince other people that everything is there inside and there is nothing that goes off somewhere.
Yeah, I think the problem with this is like sometimes like there was the assumption that everything is going to work and there's no hallucinations. So like if you factor in like a 20% hallucination rate in AI, or at least that's my own personal thing. Like I was like doing some research and they're like I asked them about a percentage, and they gave me like, oh, how many people use this framework, and it was like, oh, 40%. And I'm like, well, what's your source? And it gave me the source. I went to the source, and it was 12%. I was like, this is 12%, and the model was like, oh yes, I guess you're right. So if you did like an agent, like, which I thought was actually really cool to have an agent work on your behalf, like if it starts hallucinating, and what work is it going to actually do? It's really cool in theory. I'm curious to see how it would work in practice.
Yeah,
So
that's oh, go on.
have any of you like compared like any of these AI models from like Gemini and the other ones from Google to like other ones that are out there? Like as far as like how well they work, you know, how good your results are on whereas generative AI or anything like ChatGPT, like whatever, like what's your results been like?
I was just going to say that I've been trying ChatGPT, Gemini for basic understanding where they are in terms of programming. And the thing that I've noticed is ChatGPT is still a bit ahead of Gemini. Even if we consider the one on Android Studio, ChatGPT is capable to give you a more correct answer. Gemini, you really need to say what exactly do you want to have an answer from it. The other ones, it's a bit difficult to say because they're going to be available in the future. But I've tested some for audio generation and they were really, really good. This Google, I don't know because it's not yet available, but there are ones out there that are really, really cool to see.
Yeah,
I mean,
so oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, please.
As
Go
I
ahead.
said, I tested 3 that integrated with Android Studio. It was Codium, Copilot, and the Android Studio one. But I feel like what Carlos is saying is true, that I still went to ChatGPT for some things because none of these 3 would give me like the answers I was looking for, and ChatGPT could do it.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I've had similar experiences where I've used Gemini or Bard, whatever the current thing is. And I get good information, but it feels very like a summary of some options. Whereas if I go through ChatGPT, especially with like ChatGPT 4, I get more specific answers to the question I asked. So instead of like a broad summary of a topic, I get this is likely what's going wrong.
Yeah, and a bit more optimized. A couple of weeks ago, I was trying to do something in Android, and I reached a solution. And I was thinking, okay, can I improve this? I was drawing on Canvas, and I was thinking, oh, I think I can improve this somehow. Let me just understand what ChatGPT and Gemini are going to say. And I thought that Gemini would give me a better answer because, okay, it's Google, it's built in an Android Studio. I assume that it would have access to a lot more information. But when I compared both answers between ChatGPT and Gemini, it took me like 15 minutes to find the right prompt to have the right answer. While in ChatGPT, I managed to get the right answer in the first try or on the second try. It took really a lot of time. And I was just copying paste the questions on both or the prompts on both sides at the same prompts on both sides, and they were giving one accurate answers and the other one no.
Cool. Yeah, I've been doing some like writing prompts, prompt engineering basically with writing content, and I was running side by side initially Gemini, uh Claude.ai, which is like a new one that people are saying like if you use this you would never go back to ChatGPT or Google, and then the other one ChatGPT, and I wound up just dropping Gemini. I mean honestly it wasn't nearly as good as the other two. So like I would just run the other two in parallel now when I'm doing these prompt engineerings. So I think the thing that really stood out to me from today's announcements was like the integration of the different platforms, especially like Android, and like the fact that it's in your IDE everywhere. Like the fact that like in the ecosystem of Android now as a user, like I think this is like a really big, huge distinguishing factor now potentially between Android and iOS, is that you have this AI that's built in, like you're in chat and you're chatting to someone and you can generate an image. It may not be as good as like some of the other image generation tools, but it's right there in your chat and it's free. You don't have to pay $300 a year for it, right? So I mean, I think that integration is like game changing. So maybe it's not best in class AI, but the fact that it's so well integrated with the ecosystem, I think it's a huge deal.
Yeah, I would say that the part of being an assistant, for instance, I think we didn't discuss this yet, but for instance, for me, one of the parts that I felt that it would be really helpful for me as a person, it was the integration with Gmail. So the thing that he did to get me all the emails and try to make spreadsheet from it, that is something that it's valid for me. And sometimes I need to do that manually, and it would be great to have an agent that would do that for me. So that the integration part, I think Google is miles ahead. But yeah, I agree with what you said. It's still on the rest a bit behind.
Yeah, the integrations do feel like the spot where I would expect Google to shine too. Because
Yeah.
there's the Google Workspace, you have this suite of tools. There's only, the competitors are Microsoft and maybe Apple, which isn't even really at the same level of like the
Yeah.
same breadth of workspace tools. So I think that if they can nail that, if they can do that really well, and especially if they have them communicate across the different tools, then that would be enticing. To y'all's point, even if it's maybe not the same caliber as whatever OpenAI or Anthropic has at that point. If you have it work collectively across that whole ecosystem, I think that's enticing. And some of the Gmail demos that they gave did seem really nice as a way to organize your emails. Again, back to Brian's point, though, it does scare me when you take hallucinations into account. All of a sudden, something that summarizes your email that, either neglects one bullet point or inserts one stray bullet point, it changes totally how useful that tool is, right? It can go from an amazing tool to worse than nothing if it excludes information or adds false information.
Yeah, and an interesting point here is how are you going to test that? Because so looking at all your emails, it's going to be really difficult to understand if something is wrong or not.
Yeah. So do we end up in a world where you get these great summaries, but then you feel compelled to check to make sure that they're right? And then did it help at all at the end of the day there? Yeah, it's very
And I
interesting.
think at the start, you kind of, okay, if you are a skeptic like me, at the start, you kind of be comparing the original with the result, but we might get used to it. Yeah,
Yes.
to the summaries and all that. And then again, that gets me back to the question of privacy. They're still reading information, especially for the context-aware models. They are like reading data about me, seeing reading through my emails, my messages, for them to summarize that. How can they assure me that I have the privacy that they are promising? Those are questions in my head right now.
Yeah, I think privacy is going to be an ongoing question with this stuff. I struggle a little bit because I mean my data's up in Google's systems anyways. So they've got all of it. I don't know. But
But
yeah,
it's
privacy is going to be a thing.
but your data is anonymous, so they cannot know that the data is yours
Mm,
and
true.
cannot access, hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Like during the not during the Trump trial that's going on, there was the jurors and people were able to they would give information about the juror would say, I work, over here, I work in this place, in this, and people were able to pinpoint the jurors just by that anonymized data. So you have to wonder, like, it was pretty easy for them when we have all our data out there. It's like, oh, it's anonymous. They're doing the wink, wink. And
Yep.
the reason I mentioned that is because like I signed up for like Frontier. I was like, oh, you're having fiber in my network in my neighborhood, so I signed up for it, and just to notify me when it comes. And since I did that in Reddit, I get nonstop Frontier fiber ads, like nonstop. It is
Yep.
like, what's going on?
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of when you go on Amazon, buy something, and then get nonstop ads for that same thing.
You've got to one worse thing. I don't know if I'm assuming that this already happened to some people that you're talking about something, then you took your phone and then you see a lot of ads just because of something
Yeah.
that you were talking about. That's even creepier.
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
creepy, and that happens to me all the time. And I knew that I had not put it anywhere on a device. I had been talking about a certain brand of shoes, and then it was like showing up everywhere. And I did not do any sort of a search with my devices at all. It was only spoken.
So at all times, someone is listening.
Yeah, so I often feel like someone's knows too much about, or my devices just know me so well. They almost predict me better than I could predict myself.
It's all the models that are being locally trained and figuring stuff out there. So one of the things that they seemed like they were really pushing was the expanded context window in Gemini. Has anyone here run into context window limitations or like tried to upload more files than Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude or anything could handle? Like, does that feel like it will change any development flows for y'all or just as a user, does that feel like it'll have any impact on y'all?
I feel that if the tool already, you know how to write your prompts, and the tool has that context, that's more than enough. They showed something that you were uploading your thesis and that you put your videos in there and your PDFs. I was like, there's no way. You just need to know how to write a prompt and you will get back whatever information you need. I don't think it needs that much context. And then it's where I wonder, why do they want all that info to train the models? But do they really need that info to answer my question? I don't think so.
I think imagine that you're doing some research and you've got a lot of papers and a lot of information to be understood. I think on those type of scenarios, it makes a lot of sense. For instance, they mentioned there was announcement they were going on biology at biology level that they were going to be able to analyze the molecules or something like that. So they're dealing with a lot of information. So perhaps dealing with all of this information on research, they would need to have the 2 millions that they mentioned. Perhaps not on the basic scenarios for us, but on things more scientific and advanced.
Yeah, I think for like paid, throughputs, especially like in enterprise level and the scientific research, it does make a difference. I thought that what they mentioned about like being able to predict every single molecular interaction, like that's huge. Like coming from the biotech background, like that's like when they mapped the human genome, like that's such a huge advancement, like in human medicine and like health, like I think it's a really huge deal. So I mean, having models that can handle that, I think is pretty good. I hope they're like accurate.
Yeah, hallucinations. I imagine also from a development standpoint, the bigger the context window, the more code can fit in there. And so if you want to have AI that knows your entire repo of code and can confidently say, oh, you have two controllers that aren't using this new pattern, things along those lines. Maybe you need the bigger context window for that versus if you're just kind of doing one-off questions about general programming. So I wonder if it will unlock more specific answers about your code and your organization's code.
And if the suggestion that it's going to make will improve your code base or not.
Or make it worse.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the eternal question.
I wonder if like, like right now as consultancies there's a lot of common scenarios you come in, like the legacy code base, and like there's all these developers who have tried on like, oh yeah, let's try this, paradigm and this like, pattern. And like there's like 10 different, different architectures, right? So like, oh, what a nightmare. I wonder if like in the future, it's like you come into a code base like, yeah, this has all been written by AI. Here's a nightmare of like trying to figure out how to fix this.
I bet so. It's like low code, but now AI code where you end up in this monstrosity like on spit out. That's something that actually they had that demo. This is kind of like pivoting over to the developer productivity piece in the developer keynote, but they had that demo where they uploaded an image into Android Studio and it generated all of this compose code. I was blown away by that and then had a moment where I was like, how much AI code am I going to be maintaining? And are they
Oh,
good at using keys and you know, making sure re-renders don't happen? Like, oh no.
well, you know, I worked at a marketing company years ago, and this one developer, he didn't understand tables. So he had one table, and he had just all his data in one table. So like for an entire website. So he just labeled each, you know, like field. It was like row, you know, it was just like, is this
Column
mess? So
one,
go
column two.
yeah. And if he trained an AI on his code, like God
Or
forbid.
maybe the AI would come in and be like, let's make some changes.
Yeah,
Maybe it'll be the adult in the room
yeah, that's true.
that'll keep us all honest.
Yeah, the AI won't accept that code. Okay. No, no, you need to change it before I can accept something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we're talking about the platform stuff, I was surprised, and I don't know, like they made a lot of announcements about Android Studio and Kotlin. Like,
Mm.
so is this the first time they've done this kind of thing, where it's like they're like giving announcements about JetBrains products and stuff like, you know, in Google AI or IO? I mean, it was cool, was this like the first time that we heard about this stuff?
I mean, we've
Like
definitely had,
new compose frameworks too? Like, wow.
yeah, I'm really excited about the degree to which Google is embracing Kotlin and not it doesn't seem like they're viewing it as, oh, that's the JetBrains thing. It feels like they're fully enmeshing. But I guess that, you know, in the past when Compose was announced or when first party Kotlin was announced, we've had lots of Kotlin over the last few years, which is awesome. But that was really great to hear. Yeah, and one of the fun kind of non-AI things was the embracing Kotlin multi-platform. I thought that was very cool. What are folks' thoughts there?
I thought that was huge. I mean, the fact that Google is dogfooding that in their in their apps, like in, you know, their docs and spreadsheets, whatever, like all their these user facing huge apps that they produce, that's huge. I mean, that's huge for production. I mean, for adoption. That means that, you know, when issues come up, like, you know, if Google's doing it, you know, just like when they were making the App Store app, they were migrating that to Compose, right? Like the fact that they're dogfooding it just I think is really good for the platform in general. And I think there's been lots of like I've heard things on both sides of the fence, like, oh yeah, KMP is ready for production. It's great. We're using it like in all these huge companies. Other side, like I hear developers complaining about it. But like this, I think is going to be a really huge push to like I think we'll see a lot more KMP adoption and the platform mature even more.
I think it's a bit like Kotlin. I remember before Google saying that it's going to be official and they're going to develop all the libraries on Kotlin. Companies were always a bit with one foot behind, saying, okay, but Google is not doing that. So let's wait, let's see how it goes. As soon as Google started to do everything with Kotlin, all the companies wanted to migrate their code base to Kotlin. And I think with multi-platform is going to be the same thing. So with the recent news of Flutter, with multi-platform being announced basically as, okay, we're going this way, I think companies are going to make the same switch. It's just a matter of time when it's going to happen.
Yeah, something I have seen over the last years is that people doing iOS were resisting KMM. And as we have been implementing it in production, they have really seen how powerful it is. And then they are advocating towards like, let's do KMM, even though they were iOS developers that were resisting it. So it's really interesting.
Those are rare developers. iOS folks
Yeah.
always like to have everything in Swift.
And no, I know a couple that now push for KMM a lot.
Okay.
Curious
Yeah.
about iOS developers, what do they think about learning Kotlin? Because now, again, I think they have to learn a bit of Kotlin because we're sharing the business logic and maybe maintaining the UI in Swift or writing it in Compose platform. Be interesting to hear if anyone has thoughts. Maybe Ivana want to know what the iOS developers think about learning Kotlin, if they're okay learning Kotlin, or they're like, we will not learn Kotlin, you just hire Kotlin developers.
I think it's always important to remember that like we're developers first, and you know we have a Substack, so many of us here are going to be Android folks, but the goal is to make a good thing, right? And so You use whatever the best tools are. And that, to be fair, is easy to say when it's like, so use my tool, because I think it's the best tool. But it's good. It's a good thing to remember for, if you're running into a Flutter code base or a React Native code base, or you need to do some web development or something to like try to keep the tribalism at bay. We're all just trying to
Yeah.
make the best thing.
I totally agree. I think we sometimes enter in this kind of competition to see which one is the best tool, framework, library to use. But in the end, there are a lot of things that are dependent. It's the project, the timeline for the project, the team that you have, the budget that you have. So you need to think about all of these things before selecting one of these tools. So I totally agree with you. Being said, Kotlin multi-platform.
That being said, we should always do
Yeah.
Is it open source, Kotlin multi-platform, or is that
think-
like an open source project?
I think
Uh,
Kotlin is fully open source, right?
Yeah, Kotlin is maintained by the Kotlin Foundation, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
Although if you want to be on the official language, you need to do PR and open an issue and discuss with them. So it does a high level of revision.
Oh no, but
It
is
is
Kotlin
developed
multi-platform?
in open. Yeah, so I believe the answer is
Okay.
yes. It's fully
Oh,
open
okay.
source.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like thinking from like the Flutter perspective, like I think it's I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough year to be a Flutter developer just because of you had Tim Sneath who ran the project since inception. He left last year. You had a bunch of Flutter developers being lost this year. And now I was like curious to see how Flutter would be represented in the keynote because they're like, oh, here's Flutter. And it just was like, you look around and you miss it. And I wonder if the problem is just like the root cause of Flutter not really taking off might have been Dart.
Yeah.
And like people are little, even though it's not too bad, but Kotlin I think is so much easier to learn, even though I think Dart's pretty easy to learn coming from Swift. I think Kotlin is sort of the same thing almost.
I've heard a lot of people, the person sitting next to me expressed that, they just never could, they love Flutter, but they never could get their brain wrapped around Dart. So I hear that a lot as a Google developer group person. Although I think Flutter and Dart are really fun. So
yeah, me too.
I'm not super advanced, but I enjoy tutorials about them.
Yeah, same. I think that there's space for both. Like it feels like the sort of thing where one will win. I doubt that'll be the case. I suspect at the end of the day, there'll be lots of people doing React Native, lots of people doing KMP, and lots of people doing Flutter. I mean, I know that some of this is changing with the JetBrains Compose stuff, but like most people that I know that are doing KMM are still doing just shared business logic and not shared UI. So there's already, it's not a fully overlapping Venn circle, Venn diagram. So I suspect we'll end up in a world where everything flourishes. Everyone's happy and no one's upset.
I like your optimism.
Yes.
Yes, yes, the optimism, but just wondering what happened to the closed platform frameworks we had earlier, the likes of Ionic and Xamarin. Okay, I know those are not those are. I don't know if they still like. I don't know.
We don't talk about those anymore.
What did we say? Okay, isn't it going? Okay, I'm not saying it will be the same thing with Flutter, but maybe could be a very far future in many. I don't know, but in the recent, I think we still have Flutter projects and React Native projects, and yeah, will be good.
They also came out with some fun stuff about Compose. I was really happy to see shared element transitions finally in there. I know that that's been like a missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was one of the things that I think a lot of people were complaining, that trying to do that was just creating a couple of acts, trying to overlay items, and now it is new API. It's really cool and simple.
Yeah. Hopefully simple.
Can I ask what people thought of the virtual team worker?
A little scared.
Yeah. Me too. I was like, is he gonna do the work for the whole team pretty soon?
Do I still get paid or
Yeah. And as an educator and a programmer, I have that question across all my roles as a yeah.
It seemed like they were trying to present it as like this is a bot that will save, the work you don't want to do. You spend hours on it, like the menial stuff. It'll like kind of save you that kind of time. But I would be like worried, like joining a company and then finding out that this guy Joe, actually he's not a real person.
Yes.
And that for 3 months I had no idea. Like who knows?
Yeah, he's using
or my
full
boss is not
video
real.
and yeah.
Yeah,
They
with
use
generated video.
Gen AI video, Gen AI audio, and
At first, it's like, wow, they just expect Chip to do everything. Like if I was Chip, I'd be angry.
Yeah, I'd unionize if I was Chip. I think it's the same thing that like I thought that was really interesting. I have the same question that I had about the Gmail and generating code, which is like how much can I trust this? Because if I can only trust it 80%, I'm not sure that I'd get a lot of value out of that. But if I can trust it 100%, I'd get tons of value out of it.
But can you trust a human 100%?
I'm trying to get to 80% with humans.
Because the same thing is applied also to humans. If you're going to have a teamwork doing that, it's also possible to fail. Um, I see these type of things like more of a complement to make specific tasks faster and easier to you than just a replacement. So I think ship wouldn't replace another teammate, but it can help. It can help you on your daily tasks.
Yeah,
I
but
will
just
say, go ahead,
like
Ivana, you go first.
thank you. Like just as yesterday, I was seeing a post, I think it was in Reddit, of someone whose boss started giving tasks to the people and said, like, just do them in ChatGPT and eventually start removing work from that person, and then that person got fired. So yeah, it could totally happen. And I mean, I guess it was a real case because it was on Reddit. It's anonymous, but I'm guessing it was true. So with this getting even more advanced, I think it could definitely happen for some things.
We'll see. Hopefully the robots don't take all of our jobs. Not yet, at
Yeah.
least.
I love when it will do meeting summaries and things. So I'm kind of looking forward to that because I do the best I can in meetings, but a lot of times it's really hard for me to come up with action items or remember what was important. So I use Firefly's AI to do meeting summaries and stuff. So I think that'll be cool if it's less expensive or free to have stuff like that in Google products.
Yeah, I think
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's like what Jen was saying. Like, I think their AI may not be the best, but like again, integration and making it free or lower cost may really promote adoption and usefulness.
Out of curiosity, I was trying to do what you were mentioning, Jen. So I asked Gemini to make a short summary of Google I/O 2014 and 24. And just out of curiosity, the things that he said that it was talked during the presentation was revamped Google search with AI, smarter Google Assistant with context awareness, real-time interactions with Gemini, and personalized AI experts. This is the Gemini resume of everything that was presented on the keynote. So he missed a lot of things, but for him, only these 4 topics were discussed.
Those are some
Yeah.
big topics, though. A
Those are
decent
very
high-level
broad.
overview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
For meeting summaries, I have been also using some tools, and there is where I have seen the most hallucinations, as Ryan said earlier. Like it says that we talked about we had one case about a candy store, and it's like we were talking about an API, no one mentioned a candy store, and the summary had that, and we were like, why did it add that line? So it has a long way to go, but for me, it's saving me a lot of time to not go to some meetings and just read those summaries and ask the questions I need to do and just keep going with my day.
Yeah,
Especially the video part, the learning part. Yes, I don't like watching long videos. So
Yes.
just pick for me those specific sections that I need, and then I'll be good at what I'm going to do. So I like that.
Yeah, I love it when even just a transcript with timestamps, but I love how Fireflies can give a summary and then there's timestamps. So even if the summary is not right, it almost makes like a table of contents for your video. So I really enjoy using that when those features aren't already put in the video.
I saw the same thing with Loom, the website for recording your screen. It's doing like a summary and description for your video and like a table of contents. It was like amazing. Yes, yeah, it's doing great things for me and even for my viewers because now they don't have to go through everything.
Um, so another like Android specific thing that they touched on a little bit was Glance for widgets. I know that Glance has been out in preview or something. Has anyone played around with it at all? Is anyone excited about that?
I have to say that I'm finally excited that it's going to have a stable release. So basically, I think they announced it like 3 Google I/Os ago, and it became alpha or release candidate for like 1.5 years. And I think like on last I/O they mentioned that it's going to be stable, and now it's going to be stable this on. So I would really hope that finally we can have a final version that we can use. Yeah, I'd be really happy with that.
Yeah, as someone who recently touched the widget APIs, I would
Yeah.
love to not touch the widget APIs anymore.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So one thing that they demoed during the developer keynote was like Gemini improvements for your code, like a little, I think they highlighted a function or a chunk of code and then, did some action and Gemini did a thing. I thought it was kind of interesting that the example was taking an if-else block and turning it into a when block, because I think there's already a quick action for that, right?
Yeah.
That's a good point, Alex. Yeah, I thought that was a fairly simplistic example.
But I think like the point kind of is like, I mean, maybe it was a bad example, but the point is like we already have these tools in Android
Mm.
Studio and from JetBrains. So I think it's adding maybe hopefully level sophistication and maybe giving even better code suggestions. So I was pretty optimistic that hey, we already have these really great tools. It's so much better developing in Android Studio. For me, coming from iOS, is way better to deal with the JetBrains IDE than to deal with like Xcode. So I'm very optimistic that these tools are just going to make it better, like even better.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought that example was funny, but I thought that the UX that they had for entering text to like modify pieces of the code, I thought that was really smooth, and I'm excited to use
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Android Studio is looking just incredible these days. So I love the integration with Gemini, and it's just coming together, and the interface is getting simpler and more robust every year.
Yeah.
And lightweight, which is also good.
Yes. Lightweight is key.
Yeah, I also like the different integrations that they are gonna do on the simulators, because before you only had like some devices, and now they said they are partnering with other companies. And I think that's super useful because you often get reported bugs for certain devices and there's no way you could get one of those. And it looks like they are expanding that, and because right now I feel like I'm only using a Pixel and that's about it.
I loved
Yeah.
that they have a resizable one now too, so that looked exciting. And there's so many sizes in the Ecosphere now, because I have these big old 16-inch Samsung tablets, because that's what our organization could order at the time that was in stock. So I'll get to try some of this adaptive screen size stuff with these like monster 16-inch tablets.
Yeah, I thought, touching on that note, the adaptive screen pieces that they talked about seemed interesting. They seemed a little scary to me Because anything that's like very dynamic and changes like that scares me a little bit. But what was y'all's thoughts on that?
I mean,
I will try it. Go ahead, Fuad.
I mean, especially like with the boot camp students and like teaching college students, I think like that's the first thing people stumble over is like, your layout's not adaptive. Like as soon as I switch to even a different phone screen, like it breaks, right? Or I change it to landscape portrait. I think that the adaptive stuff is really good. And I look forward to it. I think also people coming from web development and they're like used to certain types of things from like CSS and they don't have that in Compose necessarily in the same way. I think it's good to introduce more and more adaptive widgets like that.
I know that there was also a push towards better tablet support in prior years. So this feels like maybe a continuation of that. And so you have navigation structures that work well on both scenarios. So yeah, it's not a bad thing.
So interesting. It is again, there was some of the APIs, the Compose APIs they brought again. There's the supporting pane layout. I can't remember what it was called, but we have it in we have it in XML. And now so you see it again in Compose. I wouldn't have expected to see it, considering. So it kind of we already have the Windows says classes, and I can't remember the other one in Jetpack. But it's sometimes okay, I don't know. This is my opinion. Sometimes it feels like we're repeating things and just giving them different names. Yes. I don't know it feels, but just feel like we already have this. We repeat. I don't know. What do people think?
I think that's the story of Android development and maybe all of development. Repeating things in like a 5-year cycle.
But do it a bit better.
Yeah, a little bit better each time. But then
We
you
need to
lose a
keep
little bit of something.
we need to
Yeah, I
keep
mean,
our jobs. So
at one point we didn't have IDEs, right? So that's a big improvement.
That's true.
Yeah, I remember those days. My computer science professor, and we just used plain Notepad. And a lot of the PCs were kind of slow to even run a colored text editor like Context or something. And so I did my very first Java in Notepad and like compiling at the command line. It's come a long way since then.
Or even before there was Notepad, like you had like remember the TRS-80s or trash 80s we call them. It's like you enter every line on the command prompt, right? And you save your that's how you would save your code.
I vaguely remember I worked on a Q basic, and so I vaguely remember that too. And I worked at my first job had a system like that because we still had legacy software.
That's the good old times. Bring it back. Speaking about IDEs, they had Project IDX that I don't know if they announced it this time or if they just followed up on it. I was a little bit confused about what I was seeing there. It looked like a VS Code thing, but almost like Replit, if anyone's seen that. Did anyone have a good understanding of what the offering was there?
That's a wonderful analogy because it's kind of like embedded apps. And I think what stood out to me for that announcement is I had a speaker come to my DevFest in December and demo Project IDX, but we couldn't get access to try it ourselves. So they were saying that we can now sign up for access. And I love your Replit because there are different features to build apps in there. So that's a really good analogy.
Is that something, does anyone see themselves using that for Android development?
I think it was more geared towards full stack and like, other non-Android stuff necessarily. I think we have pretty robust tools already for Android.
Yeah, I think they didn't focus on that. And then at some point they show like the projects you can create, and it showed Angular, Next.js, but also Flutter, but there was no mention of Android itself because I know I scanned for it and it was not there. It's probably coming, but I think Android Studio is really like strong right now to replace it with something like that.
Yeah, it would be a lot of bells and whistles that you'd have to migrate over there. One thing that I noticed was when Flutter was touched upon, there were so many cheers from the audience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last note I have there is like, people love Flutter, and I could feel the pent up energy for it.
There was a lot of energy. People love Flutter and those cute little stuffed animals that I haven't gotten one yet, but I think we'd be sad to see Flutter go. There's a lot of support in the developer community for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I know lots of other people love it, so I'm confident it'll stick around and become even greater as time
It
goes on.
seems there's more Flutter jobs out there than even like native jobs. So I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of market demand at least for it.
Absolutely.
Good guess. Building Flutter apps is faster, maybe faster. I've not worked on Flutter apps. It's maybe faster than working on the native apps. And given that Flutter gives you a bit of a cross-platform, multi-platform access, it may have an advantage over native, but I don't know how much.
But now native with Compose multi-platform allows you to do the same thing.
Well, I think
Yeah, but there's also like a maturity element where, the Flutter UI toolkit has been building up now for years and has so much, like in my experience, building custom UI is so easy with Flutter. They did such a good job of just making it a killer for your custom branded work. And Compose is definitely a lot closer to that than XML was, for sure. But yeah, I feel like I'm spending a lot of time defending Flutter here as somebody whose primary job is a native Android developer.
Do you want to admit something? Do you want to tell something to everyone in the live stream?
Yeah, this is actually me selling Flutter things to everyone. I got plushies in my spare room that I gotta get rid of. So please don't abandon Flutter. I need to get rid of the plushies.
Oh, they're so cute. The Flutter logo and everything, the branding for Flutter is really adorable. Oh, and Firebase got a new logo.
I was going to say
Wait, it
exactly
did?
that. Yeah,
I
everything
missed
is
that.
yeah, it was really strange because I was checking the comments and online, and a lot of people were saying, okay, one of the best things of this IO, it's the new Firebase logo. A lot of people were really happy with the Firebase logo.
Interesting.
It's a very
Wait,
nice logo, and I liked the old one too, but the new one is more circular and kind of it's very pretty. It's a nice logo.
is it a
But
little
Google always
flame?
does such a wonderful job with branding. Yeah, it's a little flame, and they just drew it in a different style. It used to be more geometric, and now it's more curves. And there was a Firebase team with all their new logo t-shirts. So right at the end of the live cast, they went up to the stage and like brandished their Firebase t-shirts
I love it.
with the new logo.
This is a problem because I have Firebase socks that are now
Oh
out
my
of date.
goodness.
So they should have
Yeah,
consulted with me, and they didn't.
Now
they're
they're vintage.
collectors.
Yeah, there's collectors. Now they will cost you a lot of money to get ones that are
that's
not made
good.
anymore.
Oh, there we go. My socks full of holes. I could auction them off for a lot. Good. I still have a Fabric t-shirt, but this is old school now. But Crashalytics used to be part of Fabric a million years ago, and I still got that shirt. So
Oh my
I'm
goodness. I
full of
really love
antique tech
sock
swag.
swag.
Me too. It's the best type of swag.
Socks are really unique, and those are like top shelf swag.
Absolutely.
I think we still have Firebase hot sauce in our pantry somewhere. So.
Oh yes,
Oh my
yes.
goodness.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, so they just put the sticker on top. I don't know what it really is,
Gotcha.
but
Nice. That's amazing. I remember them giving that out.
yeah. So, not to, I don't know if this is a good time to switch gears, but would you guys like catch what they said about the CPU or in they're developing their own CPU? Like, do you feel like they're trying to compete with Apple Silicon and try to start catching up on the hardware side?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's kind of weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I had the same feeling. And they kind of already been doing that with what's the processor in Pixels? I mean, they made this announcement a few years ago, but I think it ended up still just being like I mean, I might be wrong about this, but it's still just like a Qualcomm chip, but with maybe a Google AI chip on there. But it's hard for me to imagine that they'll switch full gear into like competing with Apple because that's a huge
I don't think they're going to compete with Apple. I think they're going for Nvidia. Because Nvidia
Yeah,
is like
with the
charging,
TPUs.
like they're like so. I think they're like $40,000 for like a GPU, like an AI specific GPU. It's like it's ridiculous.
Gotcha. They
Yeah,
already
it's
have
in the
those, right?
chat,
The
the
TCPUs.
Tensor
Yeah.
CPU, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
I was a little bit disappointed they didn't make any hardware announcements. They didn't say anything about health or fitness or the Pixel Watch. I mean, they bought what's their name? Not Fitbit. Who did they buy?
Fitbit.
Yeah, Fitbit. Yeah. So I mean, they
Fitbit.
had this whole new watch platform that, I had a lot high hopes for, but it seems like they're still lagging behind. They're not announcing anything, and maybe it's coming still. I don't know.
Is this the first IO that didn't announce a new phone? Or am I misremembering every past IO?
No, I'm with you there, Alex. And I was hoping for a new Pixel. I love the new watches because I'm still
Yeah.
sporting an old Samsung here, waiting. I love the new form factor on last year's Pixel Watch.
Yeah.
But I was hoping for a nice, like last year they had a sale if you bought the phone and the watch together. And, so I was hoping for something like that, but I didn't see it.
I mean, they made sure every single speaker wore a watch on the stage. The screens were always black. I don't know if they had them like, silenced or what, but like they never, there was never a light from any of them. But yeah, this just said nothing about it.
Maybe it was the same watch that they passed along from speaker to speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was out of batteries by the time.
Most of them had the same band. They were all white, except for I think one or two people had a black band, and there was one lady, she had a gray band, like, but it was almost white.
No, that's funny.
Yeah,
Well,
but
hopefully maybe. Oh, go on.
no, I was just going to say, don't forget there's also the three next events. So there's going to be the extended or the connect events. So perhaps they're going to leave something to present on those events. It would also be cool for people that are outside Mountain View. They could also have some information at first hand.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, fingers crossed that we'll get some nice new hardware updates. All right, I think that we're about at time. Is that right? Awesome. Well, this was I'm cognizant that we have people who are at 5 a.m. and 3 a.m. and so on and so forth. So I don't want to push over too much so that the people can go to bed or go to work, I guess. Maybe you need to start getting ready for work.
Or go look for the after parties, because
yes, exactly.
Might
Yeah,
have to go sniff out the after party.
Yeah, we gotta
'Cause
let Jen get to the best part of IO.
Yeah, the cocktail hour over on site just ended about now, so I bet everybody's gonna be meeting somewhere out in the area.
Perfect. Well, yeah, we can't keep you from that. This is a great conversation. Thank you all for participating and joining. And stay tuned for lots of Codeco articles and tutorials and books and content about all of the new stuff that I'm sure we'll learn about in the next few days.
Cool. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.